Yay.
And
Okay,
you do
we're
clips?
huh?
Do you do clips and videos or no? Okay, let me
No,
stop.
I'm not doing
Keep
that,
going.
Brittany.
All
Not
right,
everybody
that's fine.
just
It's
look.
fine. It's
I'm
fine.
wearing you look like you're going to like a celebrity party and I'm wearing my fucking house coat. I'm not gonna put this on the internet. I look crazy right now. I'm cold.
I want this clip.
I'm wearing my breast cancer walk shirt. Are you
I want
crazy?
this clip.
Not doing this. I can't. So, welcome to Dine with the Divine. I'm your host, Ashley, and today we're going to go through some magical and mystical and everything in between. So, on today's episode, we're going to talk about obviously food because that's part of what this podcast is about. And then we're going to dive into some spirituality of the diaspora, and we're going to talk about one really slick spider. So, hi everybody. Thank you for joining us. Today's our first episode. This is very, very exciting. I'm not going to vomit. I haven't yet. Things are going well. So, because I was like, oh, it's our first episode, I'm going to have on somebody who makes me feel comfortable. So I have my friend here who's also really awesome. So I'm going to introduce her. Her name is Brittney.
Hey, y'all.
She's on Instagram as the Herbal Alchemist. And so I'm not even gonna like do a big thing. First of all, everybody should just know Brittney is wonderful. She's beautiful inside and out. She's very intelligent. She's very kind. She's like a great all-around person. So I'm so happy that she's the first person to be on here. Okay, so Brittney, now we're gonna talk about you. So Brittney, I want you to share with us how you got into like living a more, I don't know how to say it, spiritual life. How did you get to where you are now?
So that's an interesting question because I feel like I've always been somewhat spiritual, but I've never been at this level of spirituality. And that's only because I feel like we go through certain things in life.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going through a period of like havoc in my life. And I
Mm,
feel that's just really what catapulted it. I don't feel like it wasn't ever there. It was there. It was just, what's the word, dormant. So
mm.
So I feel like going through certain things like trauma made it a little more amplified for me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely. I think that's I think a process for a lot of people, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
if you already kind of know you're there, like you have some, what do they call it? Extra sensory perception, things like that, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Once you go through some shit, then you're like, "Oh, wow, it's all around me." And yeah,
Right.
yeah, I feel like that's a lot of people's experience, but that's great. I'm so happy about that. So you really love herbs and you do a lot of work with herbs and oils and stuff, and you
Yes.
you do a lot of work. Like what made you get into that, like working with oils and herbs and stuff? What was your first like attraction to using those?
That's also a really good question. So when I first started my business unintentionally,
Mm-hmm.
I think that I was more playing around with the idea of oils and I wasn't really making them for other people. I was making them for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so once I started using them and I started really researching and really, really, really diving into researching about them and like what they do and how other people use them,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, this shit really works. Like this really, really, really works. Like I was using it more for like topical uses for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went into the spirituality part of it. And I was like, wow, this really does work. Maybe it's a coincidence. Let me make another batch of this and see if this is working the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And it would. So I think that's what drew me to it. But I don't know, it's comfort personally for myself, and then for other people, it's just therapeutic. I feel like it's therapeutic for me, and it's therapeutic to help other people when I'm using them.
Okay, that's awesome. So 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 all right. Well, since you're so cool and you work with herbs, actually, we have a very cool dish of the week that we're going to talk about. And I'm not gonna go on a rant. I tend to go on these rants about things. We're not gonna do that right now. We're gonna stay on topic. Okay, so every week we have a dish of the week. That's why I call it Dine with the Divine. Get it? Ha ha ha.
I love that.
So we have 2 dishes of the week. Well, not 2 dishes, but 2 different things. So our dish of the week this week is jollof rice. Because
okay, that's what I'm talking about. Because people, I love jollof rice. These people don't understand that me and you have this running joke about like Nigeria jollof rice versus Ghanaian jollof rice, and I've yet to try like I don't know yet. I don't know. I've never had Nigerian jollof rice, but we'll get there anyway. Go ahead. Sorry.
You don't really need to. If you've had Ghanaian jollof rice, you've already reached the pinnacle of jollof rice. So there's just no need to eat Nigerian jollof rice. It's just subpar. And that's just a fact. And anybody who wants to fight me about it, you can email me at dinewiththedivinepod@gmail.com because I'll fight you. Just kidding. I won't fight you. So for those of you who are like, what the hell is jollof rice? Well, it's fine. It's a delicious rice. So, here's the thing. Here's what you need to know about jollof rice. Most people in West Africa, in different countries, have their own, like a little slightly different version of jollof rice. But the 2 countries that are battling it out about whose jollof rice are the best is Ghana and Nigeria. This is like a serious issue. It's so serious. Like literally, it doesn't even make sense. So there's literally like a whole, I think it's in August, there's like a jollof rice day where there's like national competitions like in Ghana and West Africa about who can make the best jollof rice. And that is like our biggest problem between Ghana and Nigeria. If we ever have a war, it'll just be about jollof rice. That's all we care about. In between Ghana and Nigeria are 2 whole countries. We don't care about their jollof rice. Sorry, Benin and Togo, but nobody's worried about y'all's jollof rice. It's just not a factor right now.
I didn't even know they made their own jollof rice. So that's how, wow.
So jollof rice is our first dish. I'm going to put a link in the show notes if you want to know how to make jollof rice. It's not that hard, but it is a little hard because you got to make it right. Or else it's just going to be soggy tomato pasty rice. And you got to put in a lot of spices and the right amount of everything. And if you don't, well, you're going to ruin it. But it's fine. So jollof rice is delicious. So that's our first dish of the week. Our second thing we're going to talk about that I didn't even know was this deep is sorrel. Brittney, yeah, okay. If you guys don't know, I'm Black. This is not a visual podcast. Brittney's also Black. Okay, so we're just prefacing everything we say with that we're both Black. And we both have Caribbean roots. So, okay, that's fine. Okay. So I grew up not really liking sorrel because I was like, it tastes funny to me.
Yes.
But then I was like, it's good for you. So I've been trying to like it. Yeah. So go ahead.
No, I said, yeah.
Yeah. So, I was like, let me look up a cute little recipe for sorrel. Apparently sorrel is like a whole thing. First of all, every different countries and islands have different sorrel that they make slightly differently.
Really?
Yeah, people have different kinds. The one I found, this one's a Jamaican sorrel recipe, but basically it's hibiscus leaves, and usually people put some ginger in it, and it's like kind of like, it looks like red wine.
It's not bitter.
It's bitter. It's not super sweet, but it's good. It's kind of like,
it's an acquired taste. I will say that. I feel like you have to grow up drinking it, and even that, like, I still hate it because. And this is a funny story. I did not know that sorrel. First of all, in my household, it's sorrel. You get the sorrel. So I did not know it was hibiscus leaves. I did not know it was hibiscus leaves until like 2 years ago. I'm not lying to you. I was like, I'll be damned. It's hibiscus. That's what it is, and. Yeah, you're right. It's very bitter, and it is an acquired taste. I feel like everybody does make it a little different because my aunt does make it different than my mom. You're right. Yeah, some people make it a little different. And
I remember somebody who used to work. Oh, also, guys, me and Brittney met at our job, but Brittney doesn't work here anymore. She left me, so
Yeah.
it's fine. So somebody, so somebody that we used to work with, she was from Grenada, and I was telling her one time, I was like, I don't like sorrel. She's like, oh, you never had my sorrel. That's what everyone says. They're like, you've never had the one that I make. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Like, I'm sure it's delicious, but okay. But okay, so here's the thing with sorrel, because it's a whole thing. And it goes really good into our topic that we're going to talk about in a couple minutes. Okay, so sorrel is basically it's a big thing because it's a drink that literally was made by the slaves. And if you didn't know, I didn't know this, that hibiscus was not native to the Caribbean. It was native to Western Africa. So yeah, in their kidnapping, I guess some of these slaves got to bring over some seeds, and they planted hibiscus and then just made it their thing. Like they started to make their own sorrel from it, drinks and all different stuff. And obviously in Africa, they had their own herbal stuff and their own systems of herbalism. So when they came over to the Caribbean, to Central America, to South America, they had to use different plants than they had, right? Because they didn't have the same things. So they were able to take some things. There was a couple different things that they brought with them. And
I actually read about this, but I also forgot what they brought. I definitely read about this.
Yes. There's like a couple things that they brought and were able to keep and grow because of the climate.
Right.
So they were like, okay, well, it's hot. Just
right. We need water now.
Exactly. It's hot like it was when we were in Africa. So we're going to be able to grow these couple different herbs. So sorrel it's deep. It's more than just like a drink. And a lot of people drink it in the holidays and stuff. But it's more than that. It's like a survival thing. It's like a resistance thing for all these people who were brought over in these terrible conditions, but they were able to bring these little things over and make their existence somewhat better for them and to kind of keep a part of their culture, which I think is really crazy. I was like, all this from sorrel?
I mean, if you think about it, that's all like African American history, right? Like that really is like on survival, based on survival, everything. So yeah, I believe that. I 1000% believe that. I could see that.
Yeah, it's just like absolutely. Oh, the other two things they brought over was okra. I did not know that.
Oh, okra, yes. Okay, yes. Okra. I don't know the other one.
Yeah, so they brought okra, and I know everybody doesn't like okra because it's slimy, but I like okra.
I like okra too.
Yeah,
I had to get used to it.
Yeah, it's one of those things. You know what I had to get used to? Not to go on a tangent, but I'm going to. Avocados. I used to hate avocados, and then people are like, "It's good for you," and then I was like, "I'll try it." Now I'm obsessed with avocados. Like, yeah, okay, that's fine. And cola nuts, and I don't know where in the Caribbean they have cola nut. I don't know.
Now, what would you make cola nut? Like, what is made into or made out of cola nuts?
I have no idea, because usually what I know of cola nuts is from like my dad's side, right? So in Ghana, people chew on cola nuts like when they're sick and stuff. Okay. Or like, and they also call it bitter cola, and it actually like opens up your sinuses. But I don't know if you can cook with it because it's not, it doesn't taste good. And I know I forget which,
restaurant, right? That's what it's called.
Yeah. And I think it's for Igbo people in Nigeria. Cola nuts are somewhat of like a sacred thing, and they use them in ceremonies. I believe. I may have gotten my facts wrong. I hope not. Yes. So that's what that's sorrel. So that takes us into our next subject.
That's interesting though.
Isn't it? I was like, what? Okay. So that takes us right into our next topic. So Brittney was like, what are we talking about? And I was like, just hold on.
I want to be prepared, but she's like, no, just wait. And I was like, okay, now I'm sweating everywhere, but it's fine.
There's a lot of Black women who are kind of leaving the church or kind of learning to do their religious practices in their own way. So I started with there, but then I was like, no, I don't want this is not exactly what I want to talk about, but it has something to do with everything. And then you know what else it has to kind of do with hoteps, and I'll get there because because I have to talk about hoteps and how they make me mad. But okay, so what?
I feel like you're gonna talk about hoteps every episode you have. It doesn't matter.
I could one day, Brittney, we're gonna do this again. We're gonna have a whole episode just about hoteps because the anger that boils inside of me. I can't do this right now. So what we're gonna talk about is the other thing we're gonna talk about that I did like more research on is people get very confused about this hoodoo versus voodoo versus voodoo, because this is like three different things. But then you'll see what's going to happen because this is like all very confusing. Okay. I'm ranting and not getting to the point. All right, so let's start at the very beginning because that's a very good place to start. You guys, sorry, we're going to have to talk about slavery for a minute again because this is just how everything started. Okay, so in case you didn't know, here's the tape. Christopher Columbus got lost in 1492. And he ended up in the Bahamas. And he told those people, he's like, are you Indians? And they were like, we don't speak whatever you're speaking, so we don't know what you're talking about. And he's like, no problem, I'm going to murder you. So he did that because he's a bad man. Yeah.
Before they tried to offer him a bath because he stunk. So.
Yeah, they were like, sir, you are
filthy.
They said, you are so dirty and you're wearing so many clothes. You look uncomfortable. Please.
Let me help you.
Let me help you. For your own sake, you look crazy. You're wearing like tights and shoes and pants and a shirt. It is 90 degrees here every day. What are you doing? So after that, he started killing everybody because he's a dick. And then he went back to Spain and told them, hey, oh my God, it's so crazy. Remember how I said I was going to India? I got there, but it's not really. And they were like, huh? And he's like, so I'm just going to call it the West Indies because I don't have another name for it. Which is stupid. That's not okay. So and that's another thing, if anybody didn't know, I realized that people didn't know this. The reason they call people Indians is because he thought he was in India. Like, there's people who don't know that. And I'm like, you guys don't know that? Native Americans weren't like, yes, call us Indians. Why would they say that?
They're just indigenous people. And they didn't even go by indigenous. They were just, we're here. This is us.
Yeah,
like,
they were like,
where
we're here. And we have
now we have to have labels because we don't know who you are.
They were like, we have different ethnic groups, kind of like you guys have countries and shit. Like, we have just groups. And he's like, Indians. And they were like, what? And he's like, never mind. And they were like, so then, God. So then a bunch of the first people were a lot of the conquistadors, right? So they were Spanish explorers, quote unquote explorers, assholes who came over and they went around being like, we're going to take all of these people's shit. And then they killed a lot of the indigenous people. So then also there was like a lot of stuff to do here in the Caribbean, in the Americas, in the Central America, South America. There's lots of sugar, there's lots of spices and stuff. And they were like, well, how are we going to get all this done? Because we're not going to do it. And we're certainly not going to pay people. So they were like, let's go to Africa and get a whole bunch of people and just make them do it. So in 1526, the first slave ship arrived in Mexico. And apparently Queen Isabella, she was one of the ones who was in charge of the whole Inquisition. She was a bit much. She was like, oh, you can't make the natives do the work because they're Spanish citizens. So you have to make other people do it, which, whatever. Okay. So, like I said, 1526, first slave ship arrived in Mexico.
Oh, okay. That I didn't know.
Yeah, I didn't either. So, apparently, and I'll get into it in a second. Then, in August 20th, 1619, 20 and odd Angolans, were kidnapped by the Portuguese and they arrived in Jamestown. So this is the first slave ship to arrive in the United States before it was United States. Okay, guys, they arrived with 20 and odd. They left Angola with 300 people. So they died, a lot of them, on the trip. It was a terrible, terrible trip. It was months. If you don't know about how they were chained and everything, you can look online and you can see pictures of how they arranged them and everything. It's absolutely awful. And I'm going to read a quick quote. There's a really good article, and I believe it's in the New York Times. I'm going to put the link to it just so you can understand going forward when we're talking about how terrible this was, okay? So, the iron entered our souls, lamented a formerly enslaved man named Caesar, as he remembered the shackles he had to wear during his forced passage from his home in Africa to the New World. Used as a restraint around his arms and legs, the coarse metal cut into the captive African's skin for the many months they spent at sea. Children made up about 26% of the captives. Because governments determined by the ton how many people they could fit into the slave ship, enslavers considered children especially advantageous. They could fill the boat's small spaces, allowing more human capital in the cargo hold. Africans were crammed into ships with no knowledge of where they were going or if they'd ever be released. This forced migration is known as the Middle Passage. As Odua Equino, the formerly enslaved author, remembers, I was soon put under the decks, and there I received such a salutation in my nostrils that I had never experienced in my life, so that the loathsomeness of the stench and crying altogether, I became so sick and low that I was not able to eat, nor had I the least desire to taste anything. I now wish for the last friend, death, to relieve me. Overheating, thirst, starvation, and violence were common among slave ships, and roughly 15% of the ship's enslaved population died before they ever reached land. Suicide attempts were so common that the captains placed netting around their ships to prevent the loss of the quote-unquote human cargo and therefore profit. Working-class white crew members, too, committed suicide and ran away at port to escape the brutality. Enslaved people did not meekly accept their fate. Approximately 1 out of 10 slave ships experienced resistance, ranging from individual defiance, like refusing to eat or they wanted to jump overboard, to a full-blown mutiny. That's something that really pisses me off, that people always act like slaves just were fine with it.
Yeah.
Like they're like, oh, well, they just did it for, like, no.
It's not even human behavior to be fine with it. Like,
no.
That makes sense.
They were seriously fighting all the time. And a lot of people have heard of like Nat Turner and like some of these other slave rebellions, but like slave rebellions were super common.
Super common, right? Those are just the ones that were documented.
Exactly. So that happened all the time. The slaves weren't like, okay. So anyway.
But also, I'm sorry, just to go back.
Go ahead.
Also, it is about like kind of like Pavlov's law. Do you remember reading about that or knowing about that in psychology? So like basically just train somebody. So the more they do something, you train them into like beating them or, positive reinforcement or negative reinforcement. And so that's basically what's happening with slavery. It's not like they chose to be like, okay, I'll be docile and just do it. They didn't want to do it. Like, and F you if you thought that was true. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's true. And a lot of the times, for instance, there was mothers trying to protect their kids, fathers trying to protect their kids, women trying to protect their husbands trying to protect their wives, like brothers and sisters. Like there's a lot of situations where people were like, well, if I have to do this so that somebody else doesn't get hurt, like this is what I'm going to do. You know what I mean? So the whole thing was obviously like a big fucked up situation. But okay, so then next, we're talking about hoodoo right now. So what hoodoo actually is, and I'm going to read, this is from Wikipedia. Hoodoo is a set of spiritual practices, traditions, and beliefs that were created by enslaved Africans in the southern United States from various traditional spiritualities, Christianity, and elements of indigenous botanical knowledge. Now, practitioners of hoodoo we call root workers, conjure doctors, conjure men or conjure women, root doctors, hoodoo doctors, or swampers, which I had never heard, but okay. So one thing I didn't know this about hoodoo is that a lot of hoodoo traditions draw from the Bankongo people of Central Africa. So I had no idea about this, but over the first century of the transatlantic slave trade, an estimated 52% of all kidnapped Africans came from Central African countries that existed within modern-day Cameroon, Congo, Angola, Central African Republic, and Gabon. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, I always in my mind it was always West Africa. I think towards the late 1700s, 1800s, and they started more with West Africa. So when slaves
I did know about the Congo people, though. I did know about that.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, and they also have if you look at I just did a little bit of research on Wikipedia. The Bakongo people have a whole. It's so interesting. They have a whole system of spirituality, and if you look at they have a cross thing with a circle, and it goes around and talks about life cycles. It's very similar to other cultures. I always think it's so interesting that cultures that knew nothing about each other have such similar theologies. I just think it's fascinating. Okay, so first of all, when slaves were bundled up in these ships, they were packaged up. What they tried to do is put people who didn't know each other or from different areas together. Because if you put people who can't speak to each other, they can't rebel, right? They can't fight.
Right.
So all these people were put together and they were not allowed to practice their own spirituality, obviously, because they didn't want that. But they found ways to do it anyway. So what they would do
sure did.
So obviously, kind of like we were just talking about with sorrel, they would come and they would learn about the plants and the animals and different kind of stuff. There's also an influence of hoodoo that comes from the indigenous people of the Americas too, who would also teach them oh, we use this for this and we use that for that. And the enslaved people would be like, oh, we use this for that. And that makes sense. Yeah, we could use that for that. Okay, cool. So as time goes on, they kind of made their own situation. And a lot of it happened, especially in the deeper South, where there was where most of slavery was. And there were certain areas that ended up with certain groups of people that kind of knew each other and knew their spiritual knowledge was the same. So later on in the course of slavery, like I said, Western Africans started coming over and they brought their indigenous knowledge. And also another thing about hoodoo is I didn't know that there's there is a big West African influence in hoodoo that comes from Islam. Because the people, depending which country, but there are a lot, especially in Sierra Leone, in Nigeria, in a lot of Western African countries. A lot of the Muslim people live in the northern countries, closer to the more majority Muslim countries. But there are Muslim. There's a lot of Muslim people in Senegal, and that was also
absolutely.
Absolutely. Exactly, and that was also a major slave port. So in these places, they brought over Islam, and that also became a big part of hoodoo. So from this, the people were doing their own yes, and a ban, it was illegal, so people were like, yes, they were going to church on Sunday, but they knew who to go to when they needed something or they wanted whatever they wanted to do. So hoodoo isn't a religion, it's a practice. Kind of like people. No, I'm not going to liken it to that because it's completely different.
So here's the thing, right? Something that you said that's very so it's not a religion, it is a practice. And if you think about it, all the things you just said, it makes sense, right? Because just like when you said they brought over back to the first thing that you're talking about, hibiscus leaves and okra seeds, right? So that's basically, I see where you're going, because that's basically what hoodoo is, because hoodoo is the descendant of voodoo, right? Because voodoo was practiced first in Africa before they were enslaved, and then they brought what they could from those countries into wherever they were enslaved in, those okra seeds and those, figuratively speaking, right? Those okra seeds and those hibiscus leaves and things like that. And they used what they could, and whatever sprouted. So, that makes sense, right? You have to take what you can to survive.
Exactly. So, yes. So that's exactly what happened with hoodoo. So like everything Brittney said, exactly. Hoodoo is a practice. So then we go to what people call voodoo, and then voodoo. So voodoo
I
is
should probably say voodoo instead of voodoo.
yeah, but
Because
no, but it's kind of interchangeable in a way, because a little bit, because so when you think of voodoo, most people think of Haiti. When they think of a country, someone said, tell me a country that's associated with voodoo. People say Haiti. So Haiti had a large concentration of people from specific French owned African countries, mostly being Togo, Benin, some from Ghana, but usually near the border, and some from Nigeria. But those mostly is Togo and Benin. People in Togo, Benin, who they mostly took were Dahomey people and Iwe people. So these people, their faith is Voodoo was their indigenous faith, and they were very strong in it, and they brought it right over. They were like, "Oh, we're not Catholicism.
we're not anything down. Like this
They're
is
like,
what we are doing.
yeah, they're like, this is what we're doing. Sorry, like I don't know what you want to do about it." So this is somewhere where you just have a lot of this, and that is a religious system. They have specific gods that go
There's
with it.
Priests, right? There's rules. There's everything.
Lots of things. Yeah. There's like a lot of situations with that. Now, in terms of religion, there's different religions, and now voodoo is a little different. And voodoo is the name of it when you go back to those places like Togo and Benin. That's where it started.
Can I insert something real quick? Because
that's the whole thing. You can insert whatever you want.
People who practice, right? So there's voodoo, right? So VOODOO, and that is really where that originated. Most people will say, people who actually practice like voodoo, right, is going to say that's a knockoff of voodoo and it's not real. And that's really just originated in like New Orleans, right? Like those French colonies that were, right. So, and then you have the real voodoo, right? That is completely different than that. So they'll say that's fraudulence. And then you have voodoo, which is, I mean, that's what they say, VUDU, right? Which is the real thing. And then hoodoo, which is completely different, which is the practice, which is always mixed up, but not the same at all.
Yes, exactly. Oh, Brittney, you're so smart. I love you.
You're so smart.
You're so smart. You're so great. So it's all three different things. People get them they move them all together. One thing that I do find is similar. Now, all of this also is completely different than like Ifa. That's different too. Like everything. That's a whole nother thing.
We're gonna get to 90 Day Fiance, no kidding.
Oh, we are. Like, she's not even doing that. She's just kicking coconuts around. She's crazy. But okay, so like now we kind of get to the subject of, there's a whole bunch of people call them ATRs or DTRs, right? African traditional religions. And you'll find in different places in the Caribbean, they're called different things. You go to Puerto Rico or Cuba, it's usually Santeria. You go to, and I'm not going to say this right, so don't get mad. I'm so sorry. You go to Brazil, it's Quinamba.
Oh, yeah. Girl, yes, keep talking. Hold on. Keep going.
I can't say it. I tried, and I was like, I'm trying to practice. I'm like, I can't say this word. It's problematic. And they also have Candomblé. I hope I'm saying that right. I know there's Lukumi in some places, but like those are different too. So like everything's just very different.
Different. It is. It's like the same but so different, right? Because they practice, not even practice the same, but it's all connected to the same meaning, but they say things differently. It's pronounced differently. It's different names, but it means the same thing.
Yeah,
it's really fascinating. It's really, really fascinating.
It is. And that also matters because of the language, right, that they speak in whatever country. If it's in a Spanish speaking country, they're going to call it something different. If it's in an English speaking country, or if it's in Brazil, a Portuguese speaking country, it's different.
Yeah. So that's so true. Just like with the saints.
Yeah.
Don't even jump anything, but like the saints, like I don't know if you like Obatala, right, is like Cuban and Puerto Rican, and then in Brazil, it's oxala, something like that.
Yeah.
So sorry if I'm saying that wrong. I'm so sorry to be ignorant, but it's Oxala. And then in Haiti and New Orleans, it's Batala. So it's like the same saint, right?
Yes.
Or Orisha rather. It's the same Orisha, but like it's completely different.
Exactly. And exactly, it's completely different, and they have it's just everywhere. Like you can usually find it in any Caribbean, a lot of Central American, and like when I say Caribbean, I'm grouping in, you know, places like, you know, like Panama. Like I'm grouping I'm grouping in all those places where from the diaspora. So yeah, it's just fascinating. All these things are like so similar. Now, real quick, I'm gonna go on my short Hotep rant. I'm going back to what we were talking about before. Talking about like where these talking about Christianity and Black people and how some people are leaving the church. Now, I think a lot of people, I saw this video today on TikTok. I love a TikTok. And
you love a TikTok.
I love a TikTok. There's this guy I follow. He's really, really smart. He's like got a master's in divinity. He went to a theological seminary. He's very intelligent. I really enjoy his videos. Yeah, they're really good. He did a whole video about like how like churches need to stop making people feel bad because they don't tithe and like this whole thing. And he talks about another episode. We could have a whole episode on tithing because it's madness.
I don't want to pay for your Benz. That's your car note, sir, not mine. Anyway, I'm so sorry.
First of all, that's the whole point of the show is you get to say whatever you want. And I'm saying I'm not paying for your airplane or whatever. This is stupid. And actually, I was just talking to my mom about this yesterday. I was like, if I knew that people were tithing so that they could like really do things for the community, then it's not so bad. And that was the whole point. You know, the whole point was we're all gonna tithe so that we can like feed the poorest of us and give people things when they need them and that kind of thing. But that's not what these people are doing anymore, especially because in the US, you know, people who have churches don't pay taxes. So they're just taking all this money and it's not fair. But again, sorry, I got a text message. I was wrong. Anyway, I'll edit that out. So, okay. Now, going back to my thing about Christianity, I saw this video. This guy was talking, and this pastor was talking, and she's like, I hate the fact that they make, like, people think that the only way you can connect is that you have to be a witch, because there were Christians in Africa before this and blah, 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 blah.
First of all, who said that?
Brittney? I swear to God. This woman who was like yelling on the pulpit about how no, there was Christians in Africa and they believed in it. Okay, let's.
But who said that you only connect through being a witch? What is that about?
I don't know. This lady said somebody told her. And then she started blaming like Beyonce, and she started blaming.
Oh God! In her Oshun concert.
Yeah, she was like, "How dare Beyonce just such as Oshun?" She was mad. She was big mad. So she's screaming about this. And the guy is making all the points that like we all have to come to terms with, okay? Couple things. Number one. Before colonization, there was little to no Christianity in Western or Central Africa. This is a fact. So let's all stop. It's a fact.
That's a fact, Jack. Yeah. That's why they had to enforce the Bible so harshly.
Exactly. And people will be acting like, oh, no, it was there. How do you know? First of all, were you there?
Were you there? Right. Okay. Let's really talk about it.
I know. And then everyone's favorite thing to say, next thing is like, yeah, but what about the Queen of Sheba? First of all, what the fuck are you talking about? That's thousands of years ago, bro. I know, like, you need to relax. They're like, yeah, but King Solomon, the Queen. I was like, yes, I've heard the story, but here's the thing. There was only one country that had early Christianity, and that was Ethiopia. And if you didn't know, there's no slaves coming from Ethiopia, guys. That didn't happen. Yeah.
That's why never mind. We're not going to go there, but yes. Okay.
We're going there. Wherever you want to go, I'm going because I have some thoughts. okay, listen. We have to come to terms with a couple things in the community, okay? If you are a white listener, I'm sorry, but I just have to talk to my community for a moment. We have to come to terms with a couple things. Ethiopia was the only country that had Christianity. That was it. That was the only one for a really long time. Slaves weren't coming from Ethiopia. Also, Black people, listen to me very carefully. Most Black people in the Americas who were from the Middle Passage were ancestors of those people. We're not Egyptian, and we were never Egyptian. We've never been Egyptian. We just aren't descended from Kemetic kings. We never have been, and we never will be. Let's stop. Can we just stop now? Like, can we stop? Because why are we doing this? Why are we?
You know what's funny? I'm gonna stay quiet on this subject because I don't. No, seriously, I don't know much about it because I don't follow it.
That's fine.
And I don't know what they be. I don't know what they be talking about because I don't. So I'm gonna just listen because I have no thoughts on it except I know that part that you just said. Yeah.
That's fine. I don't even have that much to say about it. I just wanted to say that because I hear so much. Like, I remember like talking to people and people being like, blah, blah, and like we descended from all this Kemetic knowledge. And I'm like, no, we didn't. Like, if you are into, you know, Egyptian ancient religion, cool. That's awesome. Go ahead. Go off king. But like, but like we didn't descend from that. And I feel sometimes, don't email me about this, but I feel like sometimes don't make comments. People are being like, oh my God. Listen, I feel sometimes Black people, we feel this need to be, okay, we have had ancestors who were slaves and or who went through something, and we feel this need to be like, we were kings, we were this, and we could just be normal, like, and that was good. It was fine. We were fine. Whoever you descend from, it doesn't have to be a king to mean that your family was important. Like, it's fine. Please. I'm just begging you. Please. We can just be who we are, and it's good enough, and it's always been good enough. And who you descend from is strong and resilient people, and just let that be fine. Like
the Messiah himself, the Lord.
Yes.
That's a strong ass force. I'm just saying, people.
I'm saying, like, let's stop. Let's just be honest. I might have to edit all of that out. Oh.
Emails.
People are getting me mad because we're not like all this like, oh, this Kemetic knowledge and like these Nubian queens. I'm like, first of all, what are you talking about?
Like, yes, sis, you are a queen, but like I'm meaning it in a different way.
Like, you are a queen right now in your life. Like, you slay. Like, you're doing great. Like,
you're doing the damn thing, sis.
You're doing fantastic. But like you aren't like you're great unless you know for a fact your 17th great grandmother was not a famous Sudanese queen. She just probably wasn't. That's just a fact. I'm not trying to shit on anybody, but it's just a fact. She probably wasn't. And it's fine.
Now, with spirituality coming into play, do you think people can reincarnate differently?
Yeah, I believe in reincarnation 100%. And I think people could.
But not everybody that's following this
no, not everybody. Some people just decided some things. I'm like, girl. But I do think that, okay, so like I'm doing this ancestor class and we talk about ancestors of time. So ancestors of time can be ancestors that you had when you were in a different life.
Right.
Yes. So that I do believe in. And if people are telling me that, I'm like, yeah, sure. I get it. Yeah. But for people to continuously use this narrative that like, that we had to be kings and queens and this is how everything was, it's not how it was. People like think of, if you do an ancestry DNA or something and you find out that your family's from a place like,
but here's the thing, we could have been kings and queens in different countries too, guys. Like
Yeah.
Other countries had that. So it doesn't have to just be Egypt. It's true. Like, it doesn't just have to be Egypt. Like, I know The Prince of Egypt was a great movie. It was
so good.
one of my favorites, but we didn't
Deliver us, deliver
oh my
us.
God. Stop, because I will sing every song right now. Every song.
I will sing Deliver Us from front to back. I love that song. I put that song on the time.
Sorry, okay. So that is my jam. Okay.
Yes.
But we were kings and queens and whatever in different countries too. Like it wasn't just Egypt. But again, like I haven't studied enough, so I'm gonna stay quiet because I don't want no hate email. So
it's fine. It's like, and people always talk about kings and queens of Egypt. I'm like, are you guys talking about the pharaohs? Because like that was mad long ago. It was a really long time. Like there were more. And also there are still kings and queens and chieftains in Africa. It's still a thing. So it didn't just die out because people got kidnapped. Like they still had a society. Albeit it wasn't functioning that great because their people kept getting kidnapped and that fucking sucked. But it was still functioning. Actually, speaking of people getting kidnapped, there's a letter. Can't remember it, but there's a letter from the king of Angola at one point to the Portuguese government that he was, listen, shit's getting wild. You guys keep stealing people and I can't handle it. He's like, this is what I'm going to do. I think he changed his name to Frederick or something. He's like, I'll adopt your religion. I will let you guys hang out here, but please stop kidnapping us.
Please leave the people.
Please leave the people. He was like, I will.
When you leave, don't take anybody with you.
He's like, I will literally give up my cultural identity if you chill the fuck out. Like, he's like, wow. Yes, and I forget. I think he changed his name to King Frederick or something. I have to find the letter. I'll put in the show notes. But he wrote a letter. Yeah, it was just basically like, please stop. Like, this is real bad for everybody here. Everyone's so sad. Please. They're so sad. Nobody's happy. I'm trying to be a good king, and this is not working out, guys.
Making my job difficult is basically what he was saying.
He said, you're making my job so hard. Please. Oh my God. Okay, so that was a great convo about that. So we're gonna go on to the next part of our podcast here. And this part, I'm gonna tell you guys a story. So Brittney, I'm gonna tell you a story, okay? You ready?
Okay, I'm here.
All right, great. So again, with our theme today, this is gonna be a story about a little spider, and his name is Kwaku Anansi. Okay. Kwaku Anansi is a pretty famous spider. And you want to know how famous he is?
How famous is he?
He has so many names because in all these different parts of the African diaspora, people call him different things because literally it's in his Wikipedia profile. He's literally the most prolific character in the African diaspora of any folk story.
Okay.
Yes. His stories there's a lot of stories that people have other than Ghana. Kwaku Anansi originates with like the Ashanti people of Ghana. That's nice. That's my tribe. Yeah. Let's see. And yes, and so also in Jamaica, Jamaica has the biggest concentration. That's the word I was looking for. The biggest concentration of Ashanti people outside of Ghana was in Jamaica. Yes, because they transported them a lot there. Also, quick random story.
You said Anansi, isn't it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So in Jamaica, have you ever heard of the Marooners?
The Marooners.
Yeah.
No, teach me. What's that mean?
Okay, no problem. So I don't know dates, everybody. So I'm just going to tell you this story very broadly. And I'll put a link to other people who know more about it. So the Marooners were this group of people. So they were in Jamaica. Jamaica is a pretty big island, but it's also an island. You can't get off it. So the slaves got to Jamaica. A lot of them were Ashanti slaves. So Ashanti people, our thing is war. Like, we're really good at it. So we just fought all people all the time. But we're also really good like trackers and like map makers. So a bunch of slaves were like, oh, you know what's really crazy? This slave life, I hate it. This is dumb. So they found out that there's a bunch of mountains, and they're like, okay, we're just gonna escape. So like they just left. It's not funny. But they were just like, we're not going to do this anymore. So there were two groups. I think there was leeward and westward Marooners who just went to two different areas in the mountains. And they were just living there. And sometimes they would just go down and get some more. Slaves are like, you guys want to come to the mountains? They're like, absolutely, this shit sucks. And the British were just tired. They couldn't keep chasing them. It was just becoming such a problem. Yeah. So this went on for time. I don't remember what happened at the end of this story, guys. Again, I'll leave a link so you can read about it. But this happened. And you know somebody who descends from the Marooners? Buju Banton.
Buju Banton.
Yeah. Buju. Oh, and I have another slave fact before I start this story that I learned that's so interesting. The last slave ship that came into the United States, I think it was like 1860. There's somebody very famous who's descendant from somebody on that slave ship. It's Questlove.
Who's Questlove?
Oh my God, Questlove.
Who is that?
He's from a tribe called Quest. Like he's a drummer. He always has a pick in his hair.
Oh my God. My people are gonna, oh my God, they're gonna steal my black card for that.
I was like, I don't even know one song from a tribe called Quest. I just know who Questlove is.
Wow. Please don't revoke my black card, people. I already don't know how to play spades. I'm skating on thin ice here with these people. All right. I'm so sorry. I know who that is. I just didn't know.
I don't know how to play spades or dice. Is that the other one?
Oh my God.
I don't know.
Dominoes. It's
Dominoes. Okay. I don't know how to do that either. I drank my first sip of Hennessy. I was 30 and it was, I don't know why people like it.
Not the cognac. Okay.
It's expensive and it doesn't taste good. I don't understand.
I know. It's different.
Whatever. I can't be bothered. Okay. So, all right. So Anansi has different names. I got so far off coffee. Anansi has different names in different parts of the world. In Jamaica, they call him Kwaku. They call him Aunt Nancy. They call him Anansi. In Ghana, people call him Anansi or Kwaku Nancy. They call him Anansi Drew in the Bahamas. They call him Aunt Nancy or Ba Yente in South Carolina.
Isn't this like the spider of like wisdom and whatnot? And like,
yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
Exactly.
So yeah. So in hoodoo, I don't know if the people know, but in hoodoo, spiders are, it's not like a bad luck or good luck kind of thing, but it's more like an omen of like protection and wisdom. So that's interesting. She said yes.
It's gonna get more interesting. So the thing about Anansi, and I know like, so my dad, who's like a very good storyteller, he like always told me Anansi stories growing up, which I really like. I remember my first grade project, I made a big Anansi book of poster paper. Aww. I wish I still had it. Yeah, but and the story I did was like the reason snakes have no legs. It's kind of like, if you've never heard an Anansi story, it's like Aesop's fables, basically. They all have like a lesson. And one of the reasons Anansi's stories persisted so well, like I said, in Jamaica, especially because of the population, because where they were from, but then throughout the diaspora, because Anansi is literally a spider. That's his form. But he literally gets over on like all these bigger people and animals. So he triumphs. He's extremely smart. He's a trickster. He also is very clever and always finds his way out of situations. He's also a little bit lazy. That's why he's constantly tricking people, because he just doesn't want to do all this work.
Oh, my animal for real. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a whole mood.
Yes, exactly. It's literally, I know, I'm like, this is my essence. Okay. So, all right, so this is how, so Anansi is also known as the keeper of wisdom, like you said before, talking about spiders and wisdom, and the keeper of all the stories. And so this is how he became the keeper of all the stories, okay? So one day he heard about the fact that Nyame, the sky god Nyame, had all the stories. And Anansi was just like, you know what? I want that. So he went to Naime and he's like, hey, can I have some of your stories? And Naime's like, absolutely not. Why would I give them to you? That's silly. He's like, please let me have these stories. He's like, I really want the stories. And he's like, fine, I'll give you the stories, but you have to do like, I'm going to give you some crazy shit that you have to go do. And he's like, fine, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, you have to go get the 4 most dangerous creatures in the world. So he had to go get this python named Anini, some hornets named Mamboro, a leopard named Osebo, and the fairy Momotita. So, and Nancy's like, sir, I will bring you all of that, and I'll bring you my mom, which I don't know why he needed to say he's going to bring his mom. He's like, I'm going to bring
in my mother, like, and, in case that didn't suffice.
I'll bring you my mom too.
And my mom.
Exactly. And Naomi is like, okay, bet. Like, let's try. Like, let me just see if you can do it. So Nancy, because I love it about Nancy, he goes home and he tells his wife first. He's like, fam, listen, I need your help. We gotta get these people out. And she's like, I got it. Oh God, and Nancy, here I go having to fix all your problems. You just go out here.
Well, I signed up when I married you.
Exactly. She's like, I knew you were a hot mess. Okay. So first I got to get this python. How am I going to do it? And she's like, oh God. All right. This is what we're going to do. So his wife's like, we have to go get a really long piece of vine and a long stick. And we're going to go out to the river and I'll meet you there. Just go hang out there. Okay. He's like, okay. So he goes out there. He's hanging out with his stick and she says, hide it. So he hides it. So she comes out and then she's like, oh my God, Anansi, you know that python Onini? And then Nancy's like, yeah. He's like, he's not that big. And then Nancy's like, no, he's really big. And she's like, no, he's not. So Onini hears it and he's like, what are they talking about me? I hear my name. So he comes out and he slithers out and he's like, what are you guys talking about me for? And they're like, oh, Onini, we're trying to figure out if you're bigger than this stick. Do you think you're longer than this stick? My wife thinks you aren't, but I think you are longer than this stick. He's like, let me see that stick. So he puts the stick down. And Onini, he lays himself out. He's like, wait, let me see. Actually, he's like, I am pretty long. I'm almost as long as a stick. So as soon as he lays himself out near the stick, and Nancy goes and gets the vine, and his wife is helping him, and they wrap him up, and they attach him to the stick. So so Nancy's like making fun of him. He's like, ha, you so dumb. Like, I got it. So they take Onini to Naime, and Naime is shocked. He cannot believe that he captured a python, a little spider, but he's like, okay, cool. You know, you got one, but you still have 3 other people to get. So we'll see how that works. He's like, and Nancy's like, don't worry, I'll be back in a little bit. So again, he goes back home. He tells his wife, Aso, she's like, Aso, I need some help again. She's like, Jesus Christ, can't get anything done in this house. He's like, I need to go get these hornets. And she's like, hornets? Oh my God. So she's like, you're going to
anything else.
I'm so busy today. She's like, I was supposed to go out with drinks for the girls, but here you come bothering me all day. I have to go tell them I'm going to be late. This is ridiculous. Also, you can get some stories. This is so crazy. Anyway, so she's like, this is what you're going to do. You're going to go get a big gourd and you're going to fill it with water. And you're going to carry the water over to where the hornets stay. And she's like, okay. So he goes and gets this bowl of water, takes it over to the hornets. And when he sees the hornets, he goes and he gets some of the water and he sprinkles it on the hornets. And all the hornets are like, oh my God, what's going on? And he keeps sprinkling it. But they don't see where the water's coming from. So he's just sprinkling it. So then after he's done sprinkling it, he pours all the water on himself and goes under a banana tree. So the hornets fly to the banana tree because they're like, oh my God, we're getting rained on. Right. And they go in there and they're like, Anansi, what's going on? And Nancy's like, it's raining cats and dogs out here. It's crazy. They're like, what? He's like, look at me. I'm soaking wet. Didn't you feel the rain? They're like, we did feel some rain. He's like, I told you. Luckily, I have this gourd. Do you guys want to get in my gourd and get protected from the rain? And they're like, oh, thank God. Thank you. So they get in the gourd and then he ties up the gourd and he takes them to Niamey, again making fun of them the whole time. And Nancy's rude. He's
Real
so
rude.
petty. He's so
Real rude. It's like, ha ha ha, got you.
I'm like, you're tricking these people and making fun of them? That's not nice. So, all right, so now he has 2, right? Okay, so Niamey is like, all right.
What?
He's 2 more, and then he's got to go get his mom. So, so he has 2. So now he has to go get, what's he up to? Oh, he's got to go get the leopard. Okay. So one more time. Also, she's about to leave the house. She's going to get drinks with the girls and get her hair braided. And here comes Anansi again. He's like, awesome.
And one more thing.
One more thing. I need to catch this leopard. And she's like, the only reason I'm helping you right now is because we're on the way to the braiding shop. Other than that, I wouldn't be helping you. You're really messing up my whole plan for the day.
I'm done.
She said, I'm going to be late for my appointment. I made it early on purpose.
Those are important appointments. Yes, they are.
She said, this is important. Do you know how long this takes?
It's self-love day.
I know. She's like, I did my skincare routine this morning. I'm looking cute. Like, I feel good about myself. I was going to have a self-care day, but here you go ruining my whole day, asking me to help you with all this silliness. Oh, God. She's like, you're lucky that I love you. I swear to God. So she's like, okay.
I felt that in my soul.
She's so irritated. So she's like, this is what you're going to do. You got to go dig a hole, and then you're going to cover it with brush and stuff. And then this is how we're going to catch him, because I don't have time for all this schemes today. We're going to do this easy time. So she's like, so Nancy goes to the forest where he knows Osebo, the leopard, is coming, and he digs a really big hole, covers it with brush and everything. So then Osebo, he goes and he's walking, I'm a leopard, I'm walking through the forest. And then he falls into the hole, of course. And he's like, oh, shit. So then he gets into the hole. And here comes Anansi. He's like, hey, what's going on? He's like, oh, I fell into this hole. Can you help me? And he's like, oh, no, that's terrible. He's like, but the thing is, I want to help you. But if I help you out, you're going to eat me. Because I'm a tiny spider and you're a big leopard. And he's like, look, I promise I won't eat you, but you got to help me out of this hole. It's like 6 feet deep. I can't get out of this hole. He's like, he's like, okay, fine. So he goes and he gets a really, really, really long stick. And he puts 2 sticks down there so Osebo can kind of climb out. Yeah. As Osebo is climbing out, and Anansi takes a knife that he took to do the sticks with, and he throws it at Osebo's head. And Osebo's like, oh, shit! And he falls down. and he goes unconscious.
Oh, my God.
Yes.
Well, that's another one down. Okay.
Exactly. So he gets some rope and stuff, because Anansi's also really strong for being a tiny spider. And he, gets him up. Takes him to Niamey. It's another one. He's got another one. So he's got one more left. And all right, this one's going to be kind of hard because it's a whole fairy. And I don't know how to catch a fairy, but I guess we're going to do our best. So this time, I think Anansi figured out this plan himself. He didn't bother Aso anymore because she literally was going to stop talking to him. So he was like, what are we going to do? He went and got, they call it an Akuna doll, which I don't know that name, but I mean, I know it is. It's also called a fertility doll.
Okay. Yes.
And
okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know
probably. Yeah, I didn't either. But yeah, I'm gonna put a picture too, like in the show notes. Most people have seen this kind of doll. Usually, side note, what people do, the tradition is that if you want to have a baby and you're having any trouble, you get one of these fertility dolls, you treat it like a baby.
Like a baby, yeah.
Yes, and it will help a woman get pregnant. So he takes one of these. It's very popular. If you go to Ghana, you see them everywhere. So he gets this fertility doll, this Akuna doll, and he takes the doll to put under a tree. He covers the doll with sap from a gum tree and puts the Akuna doll right under the tree. And he attaches the Akuna doll to some string so he can manipulate it a little bit like a puppet. He gets some pounded yam and he puts it next to the Akuna doll. And
it's a real African of him.
Yeah, it's very, very. Um, and he got a little basin and put it in there. So he leaves it there for some time, and then he sees that the one of the fairies, she comes by, and she's asking the doll, "Oh, can I share some of your food?" And the doll, he moves the doll so the doll looks like it's saying yes. So she goes and she eats some of the food, and then she's like, can I get my sisters? Can they have some of your food?" And the doll moves its head like yes. So she goes, gets the food. So this part's kind of funny. So after they eat the food, they're talking to the Akuna doll and they're like, "Thank you so much." But the doll's not talking back.
Right.
Right. So again, one of the fairies is like, "Thank you." And the doll's not coming. The doll's not talking back. So she gets pissed and she's like, "You're rude." And she slaps the doll.
Oh.
And her hand gets stuck because it's covered in sap. And her other sister was like, "How dare you get my sister?" So she slaps the doll. And now the other one's hand is stuck. Now the other two fairies that are there, they try to unstick the other fairies, and all the fairies are now stuck.
Mm-hmm.
Aha! Here comes Anansi. He's like, "You dummies." He's like, "You guys are so silly." So then he gets them up, he ties them all up, and he makes fun of them too. So he takes them over to Nayame. He's like, "Nayame, I got your doll. I got your fairies. Hold on, I'm going to my mom's house. She'll come with me. I won't have to trick her." So finally he goes to his mom's house.
Oh, okay. We're at the part where his mom has to come. Okay.
Yeah, his mom's come. He's like, "Mom, listen, here's the story. I had to do all this all day. It's been a day. I really want to get these stories, but Nayame said that you have to come with me." And she was like, "Okay, like I guess I'll go." So she went with him. And Nayame, he saw all of this and he's like, "Damn, this is crazy." So first, before he even gave it to them, he had to meet with these other kingdoms because he's like, "I don't trust Anansi." He's like, he's hot ass mess.
I heard about you.
Yeah. But when the other kingdoms heard about how Nancy had conquered all these things, they were like, "Wow, okay, like I guess we're actually gonna just let him have it because at this point, I don't even know what else to do. This guy has done so much, and he brought his mom, like so. Let's just let him have the stories." So after this, they let Anansi have the stories. Everybody was super excited that the stories were not only kept by one person, because Anansi handed out the stories and he kept all the stories, the records basically, and he would tell the stories. So everyone got to enjoy the stories, not just Nayame. So people were actually really excited about this. And from then on, they were called Spider Stories for the rest of eternity. And then Anansi just went on to make more and more stories. And if you look on the internet, you can find Anansi stories everywhere. And that is...
I like that story.
Yeah. That's the end of that story. Another note. If anybody has ever watched American Gods, it's like one of my favorite books. And it also became a TV show, but I don't really like TV shows too much. Anansi is represented on American Gods. And then Neil Gaiman, the author, wrote another book called The Nancy Boys. I never read it, but there's a really good scene in American Gods, and you can find on YouTube, where the guy Orlando Jones, I think he's the actor who plays Anansi, does this thing. Like, okay, there's a scene where they're on a slave ship, and Orlando Jones is Anansi, and he starts talking to one of the slaves, and the slave's talking to him, and he's like, gives this whole soliloquy about how, like, you should, basically what he says is like, you should just burn this place to the ground because you're already dead. Like, you don't even know what they're gonna do to you when you get there. And then they end up burning the slave ship. It's like quite crazy, but it's an interesting scene. But the way he talks is very, very good. I'm gonna send it to you. But
like he's like convincing him to do it.
Yeah, he starts like convincing him to get mad, and he's like, burn the slave ship to the ground. And he does. And it's a really interesting scene. But anyway, that's from American Gods. Anyway, that's the end of the story. So this brings us to the end of our show. So, Brittney, thank you for being here today. This has been great. This has been very fun. And I want you, if you can, to tell people where they can find you on the internet in case they want to follow you and things like that.
Okay, y'all can follow me on my little corner of the internet on Instagram. I am at _ the Herbal Alchemist. I do lots of stuff over there by helping people, reclaim your personal power through alchemy and all that great stuff and fun stuff.
Yay. Oh my God.
That's me.
Brittney's Instagram is an adventure. She's on there. She's doing all sorts of stuff. I know you do were you doing like a circle? What kind of circle was it? Like a manifestation circle or something?
Yes. So they're actually women's circles. We hold those. Every circle that we have is centered around a different theme. So based on that theme, we'll go over certain stories and we'll do certain rituals, and it's like in a flow-like manner, but we also do like meditation, sound healing, and intention setting. It's really, really cool if you ever want to check one out. We don't have any like listed yet, but we're trying to do more in the summer.
Yay. And she's just so great, guys. She does readings. Like, Brittney is amazing, like beyond being just my friend. Like, she's like a great person, and she's an amazing she's an amazing reader. She's not like, she's a real deal. So it's like great. I wouldn't lead you astray. So now we've come to the end of the show. Oh, I didn't even do we were chatting so much, I didn't even do my whatever. I'm going to do it now. So listen, everybody, if you like this show, you better like this show. You better like it. If you like this show, you can subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if for some reason I'm not wherever you listen to podcasts, tell me, because I'll fix it.
I know that's right. I'm so proud of you. Look at I love the show. I love the theme. I love that you have different just categories that you talk about. It's really interesting. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Shut up. Okay, thanks. You're the best. I love you. Stop. Okay, so then if you want to subscribe, you can. And if you do like it, you can go and give me 5 stars or whatever.
Right.
Whatever you like. If you want to follow us on Instagram, we're Dine at the No, that's not true. We're at Dine with the Divine on Instagram, and we're Dine with the Divine on Facebook. And if you want to follow me, you can, I guess. It's Sankofa HS. That's SANKOFAHS on Instagram.
Wait a minute. Do the people know what you do?
That's not what this show's about.
This show's about you. She's also very amazing, and if she's not going to brag about herself, I will. She also does everything she just mentioned I do, and times 10. So yeah, that's go enough. Follow her.
So then, God. Also, I guess if you have some constructive criticism you want to share, it's totally fine. dinewithdedivinepod@gmail.com.
No one cares, actually. The show is still gonna be the same format.
Probably. I'm already, and if you have questions or comments, you can also email us. I'm already ready for people to be like, your laugh is annoying. I know. Okay. I was born with this.
Go to a different podcast then.
Yeah, people are like, you sound like you're wheezing. I know. That's just how I am. Leave me alone. Good God. Okay. So thank you all for listening and being here with me. And thank you, Brittney. And everything's going to be great. And I hope you have the best week ever. And I'll talk to you next week.
Bye, guys.